Hello and welcome everyone to another Python 3 tutorial. In this tutorial we are going to talk about objects and self. We looked at how to define a class and access methods from the class. But you will not see people using class name to access methods from a class. Methods are basically functions. Now to access methods from a class we use objects. The idea of an object is that it is a copy of the class. The class acts as a blueprint or structure to the object. So let's define a class, and if you didn't understand what I said earlier, you will understand it once we look at the example. So let's define a class person, and let's define a function hello. So what we'll do is we'll take a parameter name and then we'll just say hello to the name. So print hello and name. So this is how we have defined functions inside a class, but when using objects, you need to add one more parameter, which is self. So let's do that. And this self parameter will always be the first parameter, and when using objects, you always need to use self, and it always must be the first parameter. So we'll talk about self in a bit, but first let's see how to create an object. So to create an object, you escape out of the indentation of the class and then we use an object name. So let's say p, then equal to, then the class name and then round brackets. So this is how we create objects. Now p is the object in this case, and we can use the object p to access methods from the class. So let's say we want to access hello, which is the only method in our class. So we can do that by p dot and then hello. And now we know that we have two parameters. First is the self and name, but Python by default passes the object to self. So this p is passed by default to self. So we don't have to pass that. We just pass the name. So let's say we want to say hello to bitcode. So we'll do hello and then bitcode. So let's run this. And you can see it works. It says hello bitcode. So let's talk about self. We didn't pass any value to self. Python provides the value, and as I said, that value is the object through which we access the function. So we accessed hello through the object p. So Python passed p, which is the object, to self. So let's create another function inside the class person, and then we'll look at how we can use self. So let's say we want to say bye to the same person. So def bye. Now we'll use the same name that we passed to hello. So we don't need any arguments, but because we are using objects, even if we don't need any argument, we'll need to use self. So self, and then let's define our function. So let's say print, and let's say bye, and then the name. Now we know that this will cause an error because this name is defined inside this function, and when we try to access it from the by function, it will show us an error. To access the name variable, what we can do is we can create an instance variable, and this instance variable will always be unique to each object. So to create an instance variable, we use self dot, and we can use anything. So let's say n equals name. So this name variable will now be equal to self dot n, and we are passing self by default, so we can use that to access and share variables within the object. So what we can do is we can change this name to self dot n. So what we are doing is we are just accessing this name variable by storing it inside self dot n. Essentially we are just sharing that variable. So let's run this, but we first need to call our function by, and let's run this. And you can see we are able to print hello bitcode and by bitcode. So I hope you are able to understand why we use self. Now self can be also used to call methods inside the class. Now let's say you want to call hello. Then if we just try to call hello as a simple method, this will show us an error. We'll need to pass some value. So let's say some value, and let's run this. And you can see we get an error saying hello is not defined. So to access this hello function, you'll need to use self dot hello, and when we run this, it should work. And you can see it works. It says hello and then some value. So let's clean this up. Now you'll mostly see people using the same variable. So if you want to use instance variable of name, we'll mostly see people using self.name instead of some other name. So self.name, we'll change it to self.name. Now as I said, we can also have multiple objects. So let's create another object. So let's say p2 equals person, and I need to define it on a new line. So p2 equals person. Now we have two objects, p and p2. Now let's say we say hello to Jerry, and we can also call p2.by. So let's run this. And you can see p.hello says hello bitcode because we passed bitcode, and p.by says by bitcode, and p2.hello says hello Jerry because we passed Jerry, and p2.by says by Jerry. So this is because for the p2 object we have passed Jerry, and p2.by will always refer to Jerry as we use this instance variable, which is always unique to the object. So for this p2, this self.name will always be Jerry, and for p.hello, this self.name will always be equal to the bitcode. So I hope this was clear. We are using the class as a predefined structure and then using the objects to do something with the class. We looked at objects, self and instance variable. This is a complex topic and I hope you are able to understand it. But if you had any difficulty understanding it, try watching the tutorial again. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching, subscribe if you liked it, and until next time.